मधुर मनोहर अतीव सुंदर ये सर्व विद्या की राजधानी राजधानी।
Well, dear students, this is the 21st lecture in the series of mechanics of metal forming. If you recall back in the 20th lecture, we started with the concept of slip line theory, and if you recall, then we derived the equilibrium starting with the equilibrium equation and the alpha beta line. Then they explained that where the maximum shear stresses, lines of maximum shear stresses, and then we proceeded with Hanke's equation, and if you recall the figure number 4 where the velocity component, then if it is proposed as V alpha and V beta along alpha and beta lines, and then we proceeded towards the velocity equations. So let us start with the last lecture. So we the velocity equations, if you recall equation number 15, where the pair of alpha beta line with velocity component V alpha and V beta was considered, and after resolving those and along the alpha and beta lines along x and y axis, we proceeded, and then you recall the equation number 16, 17 and 18, and then if you remember the Hanke's first theorem. So if let us see this particular figure 5, where the Hanke's first theorem we call, and that means along the alpha line, and if you calculate, if we take this set of alpha beta line, and which is forming a kind of parallelogram, not exactly, but it is a curvilinear lines parallelogram. So if you look here, the point A, B and C as D. So at A, the alpha line where A to B across, and then B to C is beta line, and then C to D it is again alpha line, and from D to A it is the beta line. So if you recall the angle at A, if it is taken as psi A, at B it is psi B from horizontal, and at C and D that is psi C and psi D is taken up. So if you take the tangent along the alpha line, that is at point A and D, if it is taken, so it will meet at a point which is shown here in figure 5. So now this in between the angle of the tangent at point A and D will be given as psi A minus psi D, and similarly if we do it for the along the beta line, that is at point B and C. So the if you draw the tangent at point C and B along beta lines, so we have the included angle as psi B minus psi C. So this is what implies the Hanke's first theorem. So if we see that, then one can write that the along alpha line deva V by deva x minus V beta deva psi by deva x is equal to 0, which is along alpha line, and then deva V by beta deva V beta and deva y plus V alpha deva phi by deva y is equal to 0 along beta line. That is obvious. One can also write down this set of two equation which is in 19th, that is d v alpha minus v beta d phi is equal to 0 along alpha line, and d v beta plus v alpha d psi is equal to 0 along a beta line. These velocity equations in fact are called as Zeringer's equation, as said earlier, and are essentially statements of the fact that there is a zero extension or contraction along a alpha line. So, starting with the Hanke's first theorem, that means this particular Hanke's first theorem demonstrate an important property of slip line and is very useful in constructing slip line fields. The theorem states that, if you recall back equation number figure number 5, where we constructed the network of these alpha and beta lines for one particular curvilinear set of lines. So, and you just explained the angle between their tangents that meets at a point. So, with respect to this, the theorem states that the angle between two slip lines of the same family, say for an example alpha family line, where they are cut by a slip line of the other family, for an example beta family, is constant along their length. Referring to this figure 5 again, that if you look into the two slip line of alpha family are cut by a slip line of beta family at A and D, while the second slip line of beta family cut the same two slip line of alpha family at B and C. So, that follows from the theorem that angle psi A minus psi D and angle psi B minus psi C are equal. This can be in fact proved by applying the relevant stress equations along slip lines. So, let us see, if you move from point A to B along alpha line, one can write down the stress equation, that is Pa plus twice K psi A, and that is equal to Pb plus twice K psi B, or it can also be written as Pa is equal to Pb minus twice K psi A minus psi B. And if we move similarly from B to C along beta line, one can simply write that Pb minus twice K psi B, and which is equal to Pc minus twice K psi C, or alternatively it can be written as Pc, which is equal to Pb minus twice K and psi B minus psi C. So, from these equations, that is which is given in 22 and 24, Pc minus Pa, and that is equal to twice K psi A minus twice psi B plus psi C, and that is what is given here in equation number 25. And similarly, if you move across from A to D along beta line and from D to C along alpha line, one can also write down, that is Pa minus twice K psi A is equal to Pd minus twice K psi D. Alternatively, it can be written as shown in equation 27, that is Pa is equal to Pd plus twice K psi A psi A minus psi D, and Similarly, PD plus twice K psi D is equal to PC plus twice K psi D, and therefore it can be written as shown in 29, that is PC is equal to PD minus twice K psi C minus psi D. So, if you use equation number 27 and 29, one can write down that PC minus PA becomes equal to minus twice K psi A minus twice psi D plus psi C. And if you again use equation number 25 and 30 all together, so one can get on the left side as psi A minus twice psi B plus psi C, and that should be equal to on the right hand side, that is minus psi A minus twice psi D plus psi C. And if you bring those other terms on the other side, so one can then simply write down that psi A minus psi D, and that is equal to psi B minus psi C, and this is what is shown here in equation 31. So, this has been from Hanke's first theorem. The second theorem, to see the second theorem, let us see figure number 6 here, which represent the second theorem. So, let us consider again the network which was shown as in figure 5. So, if we see here at the point A, B, C and D across the curvilinear set of lines alpha and beta, and let us now take the tangent at all the points, that is A, B, C, D. So, if we take the tangent at point A that meets that is at O across alpha and beta lines, so that is we get the across this particular construction, and let us take the radius from like this figure, where at A you get at, and from A and D, that is across alpha line, the tangents meet at OB, and similarly at B and C, if we take it, meets at OB dash, that is across the beta line. Similarly, on the across the alpha line, it is termed as O alpha and O dash alpha, and the included angle has been shown. For an example, O beta and O dash beta, the included angle has been shown here as D psi beta and D psi beta, that are all same from the Hanke's first theorem. And let us take the radius that is from A to OB, that is R beta, and therefore, and from C to D, that is taken as R beta plus D R beta. So, note down these all angle which is here. Again here the R alpha is the radius from A to alpha O alpha, and similarly here. So, with respect to this, the second Hanke's second equation, this with respect to the small section, the corresponding radii that we say at C would be R alpha plus D R alpha, and R beta plus D R alpha, and therefore one can write down that AB. So, AB becomes equal to your D S alpha, that is the segment of, that is AB is the segment along the alpha line, and that is what is equal to R alpha and D sin alpha psi alpha. Similarly, the AD is D S beta, and that is equal to R beta multiplied by minus D psi beta. CD similarly can be written as Ra minus ds beta multiplied by d psi a alpha, and that is equal to r alpha plus d r alpha and whole multiplied by d psi alpha. And similarly the Bc is Rb minus ds alpha and multiplied by minus d sin beta, psi beta, and that is again equal to r beta plus d r beta multiplied by minus d psi beta. That is what is being shown here in equation 32. So the above equations give, that is from 32 one can then put it on the transport side, and one can get that 1 by r alpha is equal to d psi alpha divided by d s alpha, and 1 by r beta which is equal to minus d psi beta divided by d s beta, and then dr alpha and dr beta can also be written as shown in equation number 33. So the 33 equation number 32, the values of AB is AC and all these things evaluated with respect to figure number 6. So and then it is evaluated as dr alpha and dr beta. As far as the sign convention is used for the radii of the curvature shown here, we take, say, the r alpha, if we take, that is, this is taken as which is shown here in figure number 7 to illustrate the sign convention. It is taken as positive, it is if it is here, and this along the beta, if it is this way, it is taken as positive, otherwise it is negative on the other side. So then we have dr beta plus r alpha multiplied by d sin psi alpha, and it is which is equal to 0 along alpha line, and therefore dr alpha minus r beta d psi beta is equal to again 0 along a beta line. So these equations, as I said, are known as Hanke's second theorem when we introduce the radius of curvature, and it simply states that the radius of curvature of a slip line decreases by an amount which is equal to the distance travelled along the other slip line of the same family. So if you see figure number 6, both r alpha and r beta have been shown in positive sense. The usual convention is to take the radius of curvature of a slip line to be positive when the center of curvature lies in the direction in which we are travelling along the other slip line, as shown here in figure 7, which is the positive side and negative side. These sense would be taken into consideration. If you look at a point P on line of the velocity discontinuity, which is shown here in figure number 8. So if you see, this is what is the this is the line of velocity discontinuity. If you look here, so in fact a slip line can also be a line of discontinuity, velocity discontinuity. So when we consider a velocity discontinuity line, then on one side of the velocity discontinuity line one can say take as a region A, and on another side one can take it as the region B. So if let us take a point on this particular figure 8 P on the line of discontinuity. So when deformation of the material take place and when it is just below the line of velocity discontinuity, that is within region A. So, say let us it is at the point PA, its velocity component then can be written as Vx and Vy along the tangential and normal directions. And in a similar manner, let us take a point B which is in region B, and the point is say at PB, that is just above the velocity discontinuity, and therefore its corresponding points can be written as velocity component can be written as Vx prime and Vy prime. It is obvious that Vy prime must be equal to Vy, since in a uniformly deforming material there can neither be cavity formation and nor there must be any peeling up of material, and therefore there is however no such restriction along the tangential direction and velocity discontinuity of the amount. Therefore, Vx minus Vx prime is possible. It is useful to consider the line of velocity discontinuity as a narrow band of real material across which material varies and material velocity varies very rapidly. Though in a continuous matter, as if you look at figure 5, when the band approaches to 0 value, the shear rate in the layer which is in the subsequent layer, it approaches infinity. Such a discontinuity in the tangential velocity leads to an infinitely large rate of shear strain that can occur only along direction of maximum shear stress, that is along a slip line. Thus, a line of velocity discontinuity has to be a slip line. That is the very important thing, that slip line, and that is how the name appeared as slip line, where the line of discontinuity would continue. So, that this line, that means this very concept one can, if you keep in your mind, it will help you a lot to understand the theory of slip line. So, this velocity discontinuity which is a point P on velocity discontinuity line, which is in fact a slip line. So, that is of interest, and where the alpha and beta lines are meeting, that particular intersection point becomes much more. That means from here then you can take the Henke's first equation, second equation, and simultaneously the Geringer's equations to evaluate these values, velocity etc. at the next point, and you have to go only around the net of the slip lines. So, it is true that the line of velocity discontinuity has to be a slip line. In some cases, discontinuities in the stress field can also occur. Such a discontinuity in stress could be visualized during bend, for an example, the bending of classical perfectly plastic beam of rectangular section, if you remember. If this beam is progressively bent from elastic to plastic state region, the distribution of stress is initially elastic, but as the curvature increases, plastic deformation under constant yield shear stress K spreads inward, and ultimately the classic region become vanishing vanishingly small as if you refer this figure number 9. So this is what is being shown here, the bending of elastic perfectly plastic beam, that the 3 stages. And now if you correlate the physical plane, and this is what is the line of the stress this contribution therefore consists of 2 regions as shown in figure 9 of opposite in nature, which is separated by an extremely narrow region of elastic or non-plastic material. Usually it is called as the line of stress discontinuity. So that is how the stress discontinuity can be established. So you see here that is the stage 2. This is what is the axis in case of the bending of the elastic perfectly plastic beam, and this is what shows the depth, the first figure. Now this is what the region A and B, showing the line of discontinuity here, and then the slip line if you plot, and this is if you take an element across region A and across region B. So this particular element will be subjected to along the tangential direction as the sigma x, and along the normal direction, let us it is sigma y on the region A. So that is what you recall the point PA, and then if it similarly if you take a small corresponding to point PB, which is in region B. So for that element, if the stress is rectangular stress, like similarly the sigma x prime and sigma y prime if we consider, and if this is what is being shown, the slip lines, and this is the angle between them are equal, and therefore if you draw these corresponding to this figure where the physical plane, and so this region A and B, the corresponding point A and corresponding point B, and the element of the stress. Now these element of the stress can be represented on a Morse circle diagram. So this stress discontinuity, if it is represented in figure 10 as the Morse circle diagram. So if you recall here, this particular there are 2 circles. Now you see, that is, one is for Morse circle for the region A, and another on the right side, it is the Morse circle corresponding to region B at point PB. So the direct stress along x and the shear stress along y. So if you plot the sigma x, sigma y, and sigma x prime, sigma y prime, so one can see, and that is the angle theta, which is the in between the slip lines. If you see, this is what is the state of the stress. So then one can, this K is the shear stress of the material, so the diameter of the circle would represent K, because that is the shear component. So it is now represented as sigma x, sigma y, and this stress discontinuity which is represented. So, consider the stresses on either side of the two such line of the stress discontinuity. So, equilibrium of two similar elements, one on the either side of the discontinuity as explained, and therefore the sigma y prime must be equal to sigma y, and sigma prime xy must be equal to sigma xy. It is not necessary for sigma x prime to be equal to sigma x, because it is tangential direction. Normal direction must be equal, and that is in opposite, and therefore it has to be cancelled. These are again from the consideration of cavity formation or peeling off of the material, because if the normal directions are not equal, then what will happen? The cavity will be formed, or there would be peeling away of some material from the surface, and that will also result into the volume constancy equations to be not true. So, under the situation when the volume is not going to change, this normal component of the shear has to be equal and opposite, and that will be cancelled out, and so there will not be any cavity formation. Let us examine the state of stresses in the two regions, that is in region A and region B, with the help of Morse circle, the same which is shown here in 10. The direction of maximum shear stress, the plane in the two region appears, and therefore the sigma y prime is equal to sigma y, and as said earlier also, sigma prime xy has also to be equal to sigma xy. It is therefore clear that it is not necessary for the material to be deforming plastically for a stress discontinuity to occur. Now see here the stress discontinuity axis which is shown, and the related axis of symmetry. So, this is what is being shown here in equation 11. So, this axis of symmetry, if you look at the point B and point C and point A, and this is a point P is here. So, these are the slip lines. So, this is the what is the alpha slip line, and this is what is beta slip line, and this is at point C, and at the surface, at the symmetry axis of symmetry, the angle is 45, and therefore in between it will become 90 degree. So, if it is deforming plastically, then the two Morse circle will coincide and will interact only at their top or bottom portion. The line of stress discontinuity therefore can never be a slip line. The Morse circle indicate that the slip line get reflected at a stress discontinuity, since both the Morse circle must be rotated through the same angle to theta for the physical plane to coincide with the direction of maximum shear stress K. Since the slip line get reflected at a stress discontinuity, it can be easily shown that the line of discontinuity also gets reflected at 90 degree when it meets the axis of symmetry, and that has been shown here in 11. So one can imagine a line of stress discontinuity AB in 11, which is meeting the axis of symmetry at B and reflected through an angle which is psi along BC. The slip line PQ, if you see, gets reflected at Q on the discontinuity AB through an angle alpha, and slip line QR, if you see, the R is here, the point, and so the slip line QR gets reflected through an angle beta on BC at R. Since the line of symmetry of since the line of axis of symmetry must be a physical plane, slip line PQ and RS being directions of the maximum shear stress must interact the axis at 45 degree, and therefore if you use the triangles, that is RBS and BRQ and BQP, one can write down that is angle psi is the summation of alpha and beta, and psi plus alpha plus beta therefore must be equal to 180, and therefore the angle psi, which is shown here in figure 11, turns out to be 90 degree. So this is what is being shown here for a case where the slip line interact at free surface, and therefore corresponding to the free surface, if you see here in figure 12A, now this is at the free surface where the alpha and beta line interact here. So this is what is being shown, the free surface, alpha line and beta lines, and this is what is the angle 45 with the corresponding tangent at the free surface where sigma 1 is 0. Above the free surface sigma 1 is 0 and there is sigma 2 along the free surface line. So if we take at the point of the free surface a small element which is subjected to two stresses field, that is sigma 2 and sigma 1, sigma 1 is 0. Now look at the figure B part where the again it is shown where the alpha and beta corresponding to, so again here that is under compression and the second one corresponds to the tension. So the boundary condition of stress boundary condition along the slip line becomes very important, and it depends on the type of surface. If the point of consideration along the slip line is above at the free surface or within some region, or there is a line of discontinuity, so the stress boundary condition becomes more important. Some conditions have to be imposed on the angle at which the slip line can interact, certain boundary condition in order to satisfy the yield criteria therefore. For such boundaries that have been identified, we call it as the free surface boundary, we call it as frictionless interface boundary, we call it as interface with sliding friction boundary and interfaced with sticking friction boundary, depending on the situations we come across, and we come across the forming processes. So the free surface is, let us see the free surface boundary condition, and when there is a slip line which is at a frictionless interface, or the sticking case likewise. So at any free surface, the normal stress is 0, as it is quite obvious. Also there is no shear stress component along the free surface. Therefore both normal and tangential directions are the directions of principal stresses, which is shown here in figure 12. Since slip lines are directions of maximum shear stress at any point in the deforming material, they must meet the free surface at plus minus 45 degree. When sigma 1 and sigma 2 are compressive, the alpha and beta lines, as indicated earlier, so the sigma 1 is the algebraically greatest principal stress and must lie in the first and the third quadrant, when alpha and beta lines from the right hand coordinate system of the axis. Similarly, when sigma 1 and sigma 2 are tensile in nature, as said earlier, sigma 2 become the algebraically greatest principal stress, and the directions of alpha and beta lines are interchanged as shown in 12th B. So this will change the yield criteria requirement. The major principal stress is sigma 2 at the free surface, and therefore it can be evaluated easily. It can be evaluated using the Morse circle, if you recall in earlier figure, because sigma 1 and sigma 2 and the free surface sigma 2 becomes twice k, which is tensile in nature. For the same situation which is shown earlier in 12th A, and then sigma 2 is twice k in case of the compressive stress, for the situation of figure as shown B. So if you look at this particular figure 13, where the frictionless surface is taken. Now you look at here the frictionless, for an example, when you are cutting with some tool, or if you have a deformation because of some indenting or piercing, or if there is some punch is pressing a part of the material. So you have a tool and there must be a friction interface between the workpiece and tool. So now you see the figure 13 where the construction of alpha and beta line is shown. So because this is what is the frictionless interface, so at the interface point the angle 45 is shown here. So we will continue this lecture further for the different surfaces we come across and how we are going to draw the slip line for different surfaces, and using Hanke's first theorem, Hanke's second theorem, and the properties of slip lines along with the Geringer's equations, we can play along with different situations under these 4 set of different surfaces, and we can find out these stresses anywhere when we draw a network of the slip line for different problems. Whether you take extrusion problem, whether you take wire drawing problem, rolling problem, forging problem, one can make the slip line, set of slip line, net of slip line, and one can evaluate at any point the stresses, and then strain can also be evaluated. But please remember that the slip lines are graphical constructions we would again take up later, but these are under plane strain condition. So if you extend this here, the 3D case, it becomes very difficult. The effort has been made to but it is very time consuming, and as for the other modeling techniques like upper bound and then subsequently finite element method appeared, so the scope of the slip line is almost gone because of its tediousness and limitation with the situation. So however, we would continue this lecture in the next one. We further, and then some of the problem would also be solved. So once again I would like to thank you for your patience, and hopefully you will see so whatever topic we have covered so far. I would request you that you please go ahead with and see the problems if it is the book that was listed in the very beginning. So thank you once again, and please give your feedback. Don't forget to give your feedback, because that is what is very important for us to make the things better and better for the future. Thank you very much.